Okay, we are going to talk about the world. And again, this is a video I don't normally do on this channel, but I think that just with so many people in our community and so many people that have talked about the world and how everything's chaotic and crazy and falling apart, I felt like it was time to create a video. So today we're going to talk about 6 ways to be okay in a world that seemingly isn't. And my hope is that you stick with me through all of these 6 principles, because I promise you, if you stick through these things, if you apply these to your life, it will change your world and it will create an internal sense of stability that is not shaken by what is happening outside of you. And you will have such a deeper sense of peace and control. And people will look at you in your life and be like, how are you showing up this way? How are you okay? And you will get to know that you did this work. Okay, and that you chose to change what's happening. Now, some of you may agree with me on all 6 of these things, some of you may not. And I would love to hear from you in the comments anyways. I respect all opinions. Here is the very first thing. We are wired to get needs met, okay? We are literally wired. So principle number 1 is that we are wired to get needs met. And our subconscious mind is a needs meeting machine. And so what happens is when there's external chaos, and like, let's just look at, for example, somebody going through a breakup as an analogy. Somebody goes through a breakup, then what's happened is that our mind was attached to meeting needs through one person. We were attached to that person. Let's say your significant other, for example, met 8 out of 10 of your needs. And now you break up and there's a void left behind. 8 out of 10 of your needs were being met by one person. Now there's this void of your needs being met. Part of our identity and sense of self at a much deeper level, subconsciously and psychologically, is actually about our needs. So when it feels like our needs are taken away, it feels like our identity goes with it. And that's part of why detaching can be so painful for people. If you want to fast track the process of healing, and we're going to talk about how this applies to the world level in just a moment, you go find what needs that person was meeting and you go find healthy new ways to get your needs met. And you see this naturally happen after a breakup. You break up with somebody and then maybe you watch a whole bunch of romantic comedy movies because it gets your romance needs met. You spend time with friends and family because it gets your connection needs met and your validation needs met, and maybe your needs for support or love or comfort. We're always trying to find new ways to get our needs met. This is happening by accident already, but we can fast track the process by bringing our conscious mind on board and then being like, okay, what needs feel like they're taken away? How can I get these needs met in new forms? And it literally will give you so much life back, okay? So let's look at this in the world form now. I want you to think of, because of all the different changes and all the different things happening in our world right now, I want you to think of what needs are being taken away. And this could be a sense of autonomy or freedom. It could be a sense of certainty or stability because things are changing. It could be anything, but I want you to think of those needs being taken away. And I want you to understand that when something's taken away, we don't go usually meet it back in the same form. We can, but for example, you're not going to get out of a breakup with somebody that you've been in a relationship with for 5 years and start dating somebody else a day later. So usually that form shifts, where we might have had 8 out of 10 of our needs met from one person here. And now it's 3 out of 10 with some friends, 3 out of 10 with family, maybe 2 out of 10 in a healthy relationship to self, 1 out of 10 watching romantic comedy movies, whatever it might be. See how like the forms disperse and sometimes change? That's likely going to be what happens here, but you have to take a look and be like, what needs feel taken away in my life? How can I try to source these in healthy ways in new forms? It will fast track your sense of inner stability. Number 2, I want you to understand that when it feels like you can't control things, trying to get control by labeling the world and saying that I can't control everything, everything's out of control, and telling stories, you are going in reverse. You are literally going away from obtaining a sense of certainty. So I want you to, point number 2, practice differentiating between what you can and cannot control. We can source agency in a very difficult time, okay? And we can always control our thoughts and perceptions, our boundaries, how we source our needs in healthier ways, like we were just talking about. And we can control a sense of agency in our world if we don't see things that we don't like, by being a part of the solution instead of being the part of the problem. Unfortunately, we are living in a world right now that sees a lot of problems. We get blasted with constant problems and fear on social media, and we get into a habit in our mind, which is a trap. It's the mind attacking itself when you do this. But we get into a habit where we look at all the problematic things and we feed that we're seeing all these problems. How is that working for you as a person? Like, it doesn't work like that. That's not helpful. It moves you right back into the problem instead of towards the solution. So I want you to write down one or two things that you don't like about the world. Just keep it simple. You can add more later. And I want you to ask yourself, as one person, how am I going to take accountability to be part of the solution here instead of part of the problem? For example, if you don't like the way that people are bashing each other on social media and that there's so much division in the world, maybe you decide that you're going to be the type of person that decides to talk to people with different opinions than you and to do it in a respectful way. It doesn't mean you agree with them, it doesn't mean you validate their behavior, but maybe you decide that you don't want to be a part of the division any longer. And you're just going to be somebody who decides to talk to people, because if you keep an open mind and heart and you talk and you share, you might reach people in ways that you didn't think were possible. Okay. So that's an example. I know most people are going to be like, I could never do that. How could I talk to somebody with XYZ beliefs? But the reality is, if you look at the division and staying divided and judging people with different opinions than us, if you look at that playing out in the long term, and if we stay doing that and we keep divided and we keep bashing people with different opinions than you have, if you keep doing that long term, does that make for a better world or a worse one? And logically and rationally, will always make for worse circumstances. And so we have to really evaluate that. Is this dynamic of going, we have to look at how we want to. And this actually brings me to point number 3. These go together. We have to look at living life by principles rather than judgments and rationalizations. Okay, so for example, a principle applies in totality. This is really, really important to understand. For example, kindness. Okay, I know for me, I am choosing as a human being, and everybody can choose differently if they would like to. Everybody has free will, but I am choosing as a human being to live with kindness and to not create anger and hate and frustration and judgment and intolerance towards people that I don't agree with. I understand that as a human being, if I were in their shoes with their genetic predisposition, with their years of conditioning and all their experiences, I may have arrived at the same opinions because of being them with the genetics and the conditioning that they have. I might have arrived at the same place that they have, because human beings arrive places because of genetics and conditioning and experiences. And so rather than looking at people with judgment, if somebody has an opinion that I don't necessarily agree with, I recognize, and one of my favorite quotes ever, and I think this really applies to point number 3, I recognize that he who hates evil only creates more of it. And if we look at and we play out in the long term, the world we live in, and we're going to hate evil, we're going to hate things that we think are wrong or bad. When we hate on something, we create more hate in the world. And more hate in the world creates more hate in people's experiences, more pain in people's conditioning, and more likelihood of sociopathic conditions in our world going forward in next generations. By choosing not to hate something, it doesn't mean I don't set boundaries around something. It doesn't mean that I don't choose to politely and respectfully disagree with something and share my opinion on something. It doesn't mean any of that. But it means that I am going to choose to operate by a principle of kindness, and principles apply in totality. Principles. It is not a principle of kindness or a value of kindness. If I say I'm only going to be kind to people I agree with, and to people I don't agree with, I'm going to bash them in comments on the internet. That's wild. Okay, we've lost the plot if that's how we're operating as human beings, and we want to check ourselves. I am, as a human being, taking radical responsibility for the fact that I, as one human being, can choose to operate and live by principles that I would like to operate from. I'm going to move in the world how I am going to choose to move in the world as a human of my own choice and my own introspection, rather than getting lost in the mix and swept up in this, that person has this opinion, I have to bash them, I have to disagree with them, I have to judge them as subhuman in some way. I am choosing as a human being to refuse, and I would like you to think about joining me on this. I am choosing to refuse to see anybody as less than human because they have a difference of opinion. When we get into bashing and judgment, no wonder there's so much division. Nobody likes to be on the receiving end of that. No wonder so many families have broken up, and there's been so much pain in so many places over the world in the last however many years that all this division has really taken shape. Because when you judge somebody as less than human, rather than understanding that you probably would have arrived exactly where they are with the exact same opinions, had you gone through their exact same genetic predisposition, their exact same conditioning, and their exact same life experiences, you probably would believe what they do. And so we don't get anywhere by then condemning people. We get somewhere by being like, okay, I'm going to speak my truth to somebody, but I'm going to do it with kindness. I am going to do this with respect. I'm going to do this with openness. I'm not going to see them as lesser than because they have arrived at a different opinion. That doesn't do any good for the world. And again, if you want proof of this, play out your two trajectories. Trajectory number one, you go through life, you keep judging and you keep having all this division and this anger, and everybody does that. What does the world look like in 10 years, 20 years? Versus we start having this recognition that everybody's going to arrive where they do because of their genetics and conditioning. We are going to talk to people. We're going to work to actually communicate respectfully again, even if somebody has a difference of opinion than us. And because we're now able to communicate to people in a healthier way, we actually spread whatever the truth is, right? And I'm not saying I have the truth in terms of what's happening in the world or what people's opinions should be, but if you start having people who actually communicate to each other, the person who has the incorrect opinion or unhealthy one and the correct one, if they communicate respectfully, eventually that person with the unhealthy opinion, because they're being talked to in a respectful way, their needle might move in a better way, right? Slowly but surely over time, and maybe not for everybody, but that's the only path that's sane, okay? Any other path, it doesn't make any sense from a sanity perspective. And there's no treating people as subhuman and moving to a better world, okay? Now, that's point number 3. Number 4, this is very helpful. See life as a teacher, okay? Life, just like relationships, it is showing you to yourself. When you date somebody and you're in a relationship to them and they trigger you, it shows you what your trigger is. One of my other favorite quotes by Rumi is, if I am irritated by every rub, how will I ever be polished? You have 2 choices in life. You will get irritated or you will get polished. And if you get irritated by everything, upset, frustrated, angry, and then you sit in that, rather than shift perspectives into, ooh, something is getting rubbed in me, something doesn't feel good, what is this showing me about myself? What in me needs more love or support? Maybe I have a core wound that I have to work through. Maybe I have a painful belief that somebody's pushing on. Maybe part of what feels so painful is if you have a lot of core wounds, that the world is unsafe and everybody will always betray you. And if those wounds are these very one-sided stories, because the world has both safety and unsafety, the world has betrayal and loyalty. If we see things as one-sided stories, of course you hurt. So maybe the world is pushing on that in you, and maybe it's time to do the work on that. And that might bring you to a place where you can access a lot more inner stability and, again, agency in your life, a sense of healthy control. Because when we try to control everything that we can't control, instead of controlling what we can, which is our inner world, then we lose the plot again. Okay. And of course, the world feels so difficult and like we're spiraling. And my last 2 are a little bit shorter, but they're also very important. Number 5 is stop being codependent with the world. It is a trap. When we look at social media today, we have so many more inputs than we used to ever have. You used to just know people in your community and people in your family, and all the problems that you could have existed within that little framework. Now we have the problems of the whole world and everything happening, and those are your inputs on a daily basis. If you're constantly reading things in the news or the media or social media, because those are all your inputs, and it's very easy to get lost in the world is falling apart. What am I going to do? Decide what you can do. Okay, don't sit and learn helplessness. Don't go out into spiraling and then thinking of how you can't do anything and everything's too hard. Don't try to take everything on at once. Decide 1 or 2 small things that you can do on a daily or weekly or even monthly basis. Like maybe you're going to donate to a charity that you believe in. Maybe you're going to support people in your community or local officials that you like. Whatever it is, pick small, manageable things, because the world doesn't change because we have one superhero. Superheroes are a fallacy. There is not going to be a Superman or Wonder Woman or whoever who comes in and swoops in and saves the day. The world changes because people take radical responsibility and personal accountability for their own lives. And when they've taken that accountability and responsibility, they then turn around, they find small things to put their solutions into, and now they are a functioning human being in a dysfunctional world. Reminds me of another quote by Krishnamurti where he says, "It is no measure of good health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society." Okay, so the idea is not to go get codependent with everybody and think you have to take it all on. The idea is to be a functioning person by radical responsibility, personal accountability for your own inner world, and then be part of a solution. And when a lot of people do that collectively, then all of a sudden we have a world that starts moving the needle to a better place. But it's because of many, many, many people in the collective individually taking responsibility that the needle moves. And the last thing is I want you to notice the impact of labeling everything. Okay. And this is a very kind of silly analogy, but I want it to click for something in you, hit something in you. I have these deer in my neighborhood because I love to live way outside of cities. I'm not a big city person. And sometimes I look at the deer in my neighborhood and they're just peacefully grazing, they're just hanging out, and they are definitely unaffected by everything happening in the world, of course. But why are they not suffering right now? I mean, there's all these psychological arguments about their brain development and all these things, but because of their brains, they're not labeling the world. And there is a profound difference between looking at the world through all of your conditioning and all of your labels and the mind being so busy and projecting all of these things versus your ability to be in the world with the absence of labels. And there's this interesting idea, right? If you look out, let's say into your backyard or out of your window or wherever you are right now, and you look and maybe you see a tree. Well, we're so quick when we see a tree to think tree, and our mind overlays a label and a term onto the tree. But the moment we overlay something onto the tree, we don't actually see the tree. And I want you to notice the difference between labeling a tree versus seeing the tree, trying to like actually look at the tree and see it and look at the detail on the tree trunk or the beauty of the tree leaves and the colors and noticing and actually being present and in relationship to the tree. Well, in one act, your mind labels and it deadens the relationship you have to the tree. And of course, our mind does this all day. I'm not saying that we can suddenly stop all of this, but there's a difference between being in the world and being present in the world versus being in a world that we are constantly labeling. And the more we get into labels of this person with this view and this view, and we label all of these things in the world, the more we get lost in that, then we lose our ability to be present in our world and to experience life in color, really. And when those labels get so charged, when we live in a world that says all people with these beliefs are this way, and all people with these beliefs are this way, when we live in a world that looks like that, we really rob life from its reality, right? We really rob people of their humanity. We see a person as, oh, you're this, and now I'm going to put you in this box in my mind because you have these views, and now I think these negative things about you. And it's like, that's not the point. I think labels serve as buckets for understanding, but if we confine everything to just the label of which we're labeling it, you lose out on everything else about that human being or about that person or about that experience. And I think when our mind gets really busy, we just live all through our labels, all through our conditioning, all through the ego mind, and we lose our capacity to be present. And you do not get rest. Your mind does not rest when you don't take a break from labeling things. And when you get a chance to take a break from labeling things, maybe through meditation or mindfulness practice or things of that nature, your mind actually has the capacity to recharge. When you are labeling things all day, every day, it's like you're constantly jogging through life. You're constantly running and you never get a chance to stop and sit or lay down and breathe. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting for the mind. And when you get onto social media before bed and you scroll through everything and you do all of that and your mind's labeling and labeling, you're never unplugging. And so, of course, the world feels extra scary and extra difficult. I want to come in here and share a free gift that we are giving away. It is our Skyrocket Your Self-Esteem course that you get to keep for free for life if you sign up for a 7-day free trial to the Personal Development School. Within that 7 days, you'll be able to access every single course that we have at PDS. You'll be able to join live webinars, ask me personally your questions in there, and you'll be able to use that 7-day free trial to explore all of the other peer support groups, build community, and you will keep the Skyrocket Your Self-Esteem course literally for free for life. If you cancel before the 7th day, you'll never be charged anything, and you'll still get to keep the gift Skyrocket Your Self-Esteem for free. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a really powerful course for helping you build more confidence, rewire limiting beliefs that are blocking you, and help you build and understand the relationship to yourself so you can honor your needs, your truth, and your boundaries. The last piece of advice I have there for you is to give yourself room to actually pause, to practice being instead of always doing, always labeling, always busying yourself. And there's immense freedom in that. So that's it for today. I hope this was helpful for you. Please take one or two of those principles and apply them to your life. It can really change everything. And it is fully possible to feel comfortable and confident in your own skin, in our world, even if there seems to be chaos happening outside of us. And I think when we individually take that radical responsibility for our internal world first, that is the very thing that drives collective shifts and changes. Thanks for watching. I hope you subscribe. Let me know if you want more videos like this, and I will make them, and I will see you next time.